Welcome to our TDUK Responsible Purchasing Policy webinar, our penultimate webinar in our sustainability series. Just to introduce our speakers today. So we've got, starting off, we've got Xiao Ma, who's our Sustainability Manager, who's going to be talking about the overall purchasing policy and what it may include going forward. Still under discussion, but this is sort of the proposal that we're taking forward to the board. Following Xiao, we've got Camilla Hare, who's our heads up communication for TDUK, who's going to be talking about the Code for Construction Product Information, which going to form part of the new RPP. And then finishing up, we've got Lucy Kamal, who's going to be talking, who's our FLEGT project manager, who's going to be talking about the TDUK project with the UK government on making tropical timber more sustainable. So that's our three speakers for the day. Just a few sort of points, really. We're going to go through all the presentations and we'll probably take questions at the end. So if you've got any questions, if you'd like to add them to the chat, it's probably the easiest one to enter them in rather than the question and answers. So yeah, just any questions you've got as we go through, stick them in the chat, and we'll answer them all at the end. We'll go through and do some questions there. Obviously you're all on mute at the moment anyway. That's just the way the platform works at the moment. So if there's no other questions, just to introduce myself, probably the other thing to do. I haven't introduced myself. So my name's Charlie Law. I'm Sustainability Director at TDUK, and we've been pulling this series together to try and upskill our members on some of the work that TDUK has been doing over the last few months to get us off the ground, because we've only been in existence for the last 6 months. But what we're looking to do going forward as well, around responsible sourcing, which is very much today's topic, but also on carbon and circular economy. So those are the topics that we're very much discussing. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Xiao, who's going to go through the RPP. So thanks, Xiao.
Thank you, Charlie. Good afternoon, everybody. It's lovely to see you, although I can only see your names for now. So hopefully I'll be able to see some of you in person in the next few weeks or so. So today we are going to talk about the RPP and our current framework and future plans and proposals going forward. We are going to cover what RPP is, a little bit of background and history of RPP, what does it currently cover, the current scope, and future proposals. And then I'm going to invite my colleagues Camilla and Lucy to share about two important components here. Allow me to start first. So the RPP is all around the core component of TTF, going forward, TDUK. So the core of organization is the code of conduct. It is a series of rules and commitment. Committing members, because a lot of our current members at TTF are first places of good on the UK market. So we do have a duty of care to ensure that the goods that arrive here are okay and are in line with the relevant industry standard requirement, as well as best practices and issues on product performance and claims, etc. There are two important pieces of legislation involved here. So number one is, I'm sure most of us here are all quite aware of, is the timber regulations. So previously EUTR and now UKTR. The other one is about construction product regulations, because a lot of our current members are in the construction industry. So we do buy and sell a lot of construction products. Let me just go back here. So this is our core code of conduct for TTF. So we do want to work with members, not only to give them a lot of rules and commitment, but also to support them. So to ensure that there's a continuous improvement involving the awareness raising, awareness, capacity, best practice, to ensure the continuous improvement of all aspects of our members' operations, to ensure that they could become in line or even better than what is being specified here in the Code of Conduct. So how do we do that? Because this involves a massive amount of work and information. So we need a way or a framework to understand where our members are, what issues they have been facing, to evaluate their current performances, and in order to allow us to design or develop relevant support that members are needed. So how do we do that? There are not only us here. We work with a range of stakeholders. First of all, the product divisions and all the committees here in TTF and TDUK. We also work with many industry stakeholders, other organizations, trade bodies in UK and Europe, NGOs, and UK government body, including such as the UKTR enforcement body. So we work all together with those bodies and departments and stakeholders to devise tools, guidance, to provide trainings, to carry out data analysis on our members' performance data and procurement data, to allow us to maintain the whole system integrity and benchmark. The other second party here, our members, we need our members to definitely let us know how they are, what they have been buying or purchasing into the UK market, their current due diligence performance carried out, and to ask them to participate in our local committees or regional meetings so that we have this dialogue going on all the time. The other very important party here is third-party reviewer, auditing body, or auditors. We work with them. So currently our main auditing body is a UK organization called the Soil Association, but we do occasionally work with other independent consultants and reviewers as well. So we ask them to help us to work with our members to carry out annual review and assessment, and based on the assessment to provide recommendations, suggestions for areas that need to be improved. So all those three parties work together as a loop. And this is a continuous journey with no start and no end. And this is our current framework called RPP. Well, it used to be called Responsible Purchasing Policy, but now you can see that it has expanded a little beyond that. It is really an active framework of interacting with bodies to ensure that everyone is in line with the code of conduct and be able to make improvements toward it. And now a little bit of history of RPP. So RPP existed long before me joining TTF, and I can see a lot of you here were already involved with RPP before. So RPP previously, more than 2 decades ago almost, the TTF introduced a piece of environmental code of practice. It asks members to commit in terms of buying only timber from legal and sustainable sources. 2 years later, we introduced a voluntary due diligence procedure or scheme to allow and to assist members to implement this environmental code of practice. It is a set of really strict requirements, including checklists, target setting, in terms of buying more and more timbers from certified sources, etc., and rating card on country and supplier. And in 2008, we made the RPP, or this due diligence requirement, a mandatory requirement for all TTF importer members. And this is way ahead of when EUTR was first introduced. That was back in 2013. And to my understanding, do correct me here, Charlie and Camilla, I believe the construction product regulation was also introduced maybe around similar time, or maybe a little bit earlier, back in 2011, which touches upon requirement on the product performance and due diligence in terms of the timber importers here on construction products. We then, in the next few years, carried out various reviews, performance reviews of our members' product. First of all on plywood, and I believe another one here on flooring product. And throughout all of those years, the RPP and the due diligence framework undergone serious evolutions or changes and updates. And we also updated the code of conduct a few times. We need to keep it updated and maintained in line with all the industry standard and requirement. And now here we are becoming TDUK. So what happens with our code of conduct and with our current schemes? How can we be able to apply it to allow the new members of TDUK to be also, to be covered in this whole scheme, and in order for us to provide relevant supports for those members. But then there's a problem. As you can see here, those are our current types of members under TTF, mainly the importers or timber distributors and agents and manufacturers, etc., etc. And those are our current scope of RPP. As you can see, all of them are focused on timber sourcing to ensure the legality aspect of it, the sustainability aspect of it, and product claims and performance. And majority of the responsibility are with the importer. But although we do ask everybody to complete their annual reporting to let us know what they have been placing on the UK market. So that is our current scope. Going forward, becoming TDUK, we will be having a lot more members, specifier members especially, so contractors, architects, maybe construction companies as well as retailers. So they will not be able to fit into this current scope anymore. So what is it that we need to do? So a lot of them are specifiers who are the customers to our existing TTF importer members. So we do need to add one element on responsible specification to ensure, because in order for those organizations to be able to deliver the responsible purchasing policy, it is an act that needs everybody to work together. So what should we add here? First of all, under the timber sourcing element, so those are the list of elements that we wanted to include under RPP. So under timber sourcing element, we would like the specifiers to together ensure that they specify product that have valid certification, if possible. But before that, definitely to ensure that timber come from responsibly managed sources. But not only certification and legality here, there are other schemes out there that could help ensure this. One of them is called Grown in Britain. I'm sure you may all be aware of that. The other one is called FLEGT, which my colleague Lucy will be share more with us later. And also, what are the differences between those different types of certification claims? Are specifiers, do they need any support in terms of ensuring that they are definitely specifying, not only specifying correctly, but ensure that when the product arrived on their site, they are able to check if it is indeed what is being specified. But how can they do that now? Other element, the product performance claims is becoming CCPI in short, so Code for Construction Product Information, which you will be hearing more from Camilla in a minute. So for our specifier members, not only them, as well as all the importers and their suppliers globally, we do need to work together to ensure that the product information is correct, clear, and fit for purpose all the time. Another one is on environmental product declaration, or EPDs. So Charlie ran another webinar a few weeks back on what does EPD look like, what it is for, and how do we check EPD. So we would like the specifier members to start requesting for EPDs from their upstream suppliers, and we will like our manufacturing members or our importer members to also start gathering them or start producing them and make available EPDs to their downstream clients. Another one on the social and ethical sourcing requirement. The Modern Slavery Act is currently still the #1 legislation out there that covers those different elements. So we are also considering to start reviewing members' statement, their actions that they put into practice on delivering those statements stated in the MSA. Altogether, all of those, we hope to introduce this responsible specification element into the TDUK RPP. And on top of that, the carbon emission commitment and other energy emission related criteria and reporting requirements. So maybe we need to start considering have this annual reporting added as well on members' scope 1, 2, 3 emissions. But we appreciate that all of those are a lot of work, a lot of information for members to take on board. It is not going to happen overnight in one day. So we will be there to provide relevant guidance and support. But this is also where we will need your help and input as well. Currently, all of those proposals and activities are being discussed by the TDUK Sustainability Committee and all the subcommittees, which I'm sure Charlie may help to add more in a minute. So we hope to provide guidance, trainings, toolkit, information package, etc., to all members on what are important, what are coming up. We hope to provide regular market insight and update on all the regulatory requirements that could impact members' operations day to day, as well as conducting technical research on specific topics and areas. And we will all definitely continue our journey with members in terms of ensuring this continuous improvement that is going to be done via the annual evaluation or audit and reporting and discussion groups and seminars, which we hope to be organizing very frequently going forward. So that is the end of my introduction bit to the RPP. I'm now going to hand the floor to my colleague Camilla to cover the CCPI. Thank you. Camilla, I'm going to stop sharing now. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I will just put my slides up and share those. Right, can everyone see that? Yep, good. Okay, well, thank you very much, Xiao, for laying out the future of the RPP, and there are some very important points there, and as you say, a lot of work. I'm here to talk about everything 1 second. The Code for Construction Product Information. Now, I'm sure most TDUK members will be aware that there's a whole new regulatory landscape building up around construction products. So we have a new construction products regulator, which is already being set up under OPSS, new construction competence committees within the building safety regulator being set up. And obviously after Grenfell, the competence steering group of the construction industry set up 12 working groups to look at the competence of literally everybody involved in the construction supply chain, all the way from the new regulated roles under the Building Safety Bill through to our end of the equation, which is WG12, which is the Construction Products Competence Working Group. Now the CCPI fits into this whole landscape. It has 11 clauses, and the last of those actually demands that people both creating and disseminating product information are actually competent, and we'll go into that in a bit more detail. So the CCPI has 5 acid tests for construction product information. It says that information should be accurate, unambiguous, up-to-date, clear and accessible. So to take an example of one of the campaigns that TTF has been working on across the past year, being preservative treated timber. So for example, you will find on some websites of some sellers of preservative treated timbers the words green treated, and that now has to come into being the correct use class application. So whether the timber has been treated to with a loading of preservative that's level use class 2 for interior only, or use class 4 for use near the ground. So CCPI is really encouraging the really accurate description of products. We've been given some slides by CCPI, for which we're very grateful. And this tells us a little about the journey of CCPI's development. Essentially, it's a product information licensing system. It's currently voluntary, although there is an appetite for legislation within government if they don't see the construction sector, the construction product sector, taking enough action on this. Product information is needs to be accurate, and also it needs to be accessible so that those people who are actually using the construction products cannot misinterpret how they can use that information. So whether you're providing information to trade or business customers or specifiers or installers, really CCPI is the way to go for all of us who are servicing those markets. The actual code itself has taken shape over the past 3 years, and the final licensing system will be available come December. At the moment, it's being tested by CPIL, which is the organisation providing assurance. And I'd like to draw everyone's attention so that you can go directly and get more information to that website up there, CPI Code. .org.uk, and there you will find the 11 clauses which essentially cover every stage of creating the information around construction products. So creation of the basic information, its sign off and its production, updating that information, and also the sort of the dissemination chain. So for example, if you're a manufacturer, you may have your information being used by others in the supply chain. Say, for example, a manufacturer will sell their products to a builder's merchant. Has the builder's merchant got the correct information on their website, and so on? And as you can see, clause 11 down there does highlight the competence of people. Now, we appreciate that this all sounds very onerous for smaller members, so we've actually helped by creating some information resources which are in the member section of the TTF website related to CCPI, and there you'll find a spreadsheet to help you create product information and create a documentary system which monitors that all the way through. And we've also created an ethics tree for anyone who feels they need a bit of guidance on the ethical, training up people in the ethical behaviours that are expected in our industry. So this is the approach here to verification of CCPI. The first of the 5 steps is that they will survey the leadership and culture of the organisation. And then there's a management systems questionnaire. Then they assess your whole organisation with those 2 bits of information. Then you can submit a product set for verification, and then the verification takes place. This diagram I find is a little bit confusing, but essentially what it's trying to tell us is that every size of company can register for a CCPI license. So whether you're a company with a single product or a company with many brands, many sub-companies, many subsidiary companies, many product sets and so on, there are all sorts of options here. The key definition really is, what is a product set? Now we have to bear in mind that this whole system is still being tested, so nothing will be finalised until early to mid-December this year. But I did ask CPIL for an idea, and they gave me the following words. A product set is a grouping of products as defined by your organisation. It will usually be defined by a common standard or standards and a testing regime. So to put that into context for our trading members, easy examples would be things like roofing batten, which come under BS 5534, or structural timber products. Or beyond this, a product set could be, say, for example, a range of decorative mouldings. So you've got your skirtings, your architraves, your dado rail, and so on and so forth. But there is one caveat here. As the system's being tested at the moment, there may be an upper limit set on the number of products that you can have classed as one product set, and we don't know what that limit will be as yet. Our view within TDUK is that we are encouraging all our members basically to read the code and to understand the implications, but also to get benchmarking your product information against those 11 clauses. You know, is everything, as the old advert for people of my age might remember, legal, decent, honest and truthful? Just go through and just make sure that no one could misinterpret what you've written. And that's surprisingly easy to do, especially if you're coming at it from a different point in construction supply chain. Now, in the future under CCPI, we may be able to offer members some kind of pre-audit sample check or something of that nature. And obviously we may incorporate adherence to CCPI as some kind of point of due diligence within our system, but all of that is currently under discussion. And I'd like to finish very briefly with this statement from David Hopkins, our CEO, just to say that really you're trying to prove that you are being truthful, accurate, and of course that engenders trust, and trust is one of the most valuable assets that a business can attain. So that's a very brief run through the CCPI. There's more on the members page of the TTF website, so please do go and visit that, and we will circulate those details afterwards. Thank you very much. I'll stop sharing my screen now.
Thank you, Camilla. Thank you very much. I'm sure we may have questions, but please do type them into the chat box, and we will try to pick it up later. Next, I'm going to invite my colleague Lucy to tell us a bit more about FLEGT and the works that we have been doing here to promote FLEGT around the globe. Thank you. Hi, Lucy. Ready when you are.
Hi, Zhao. Thank you very much. Waiting for the thumbs up for my screen. Hopefully that's gonna, lovely. Thanks, Charlie. Okay, hello everybody. I'm Lucy Kamal. I am the TDUK's FLEGT project manager. Who knew that we needed one? For the last 3 years or so, as was the Timber Trade Federation, now TDUK, we have had grant funded project work with the British government through the Foreign Commonwealth Development Office under their Forest Governance, Markets and Climate Programme to help support, advocate for better governance throughout the tropical region for timber, and to create a stronger, more responsible and sustainable trading environment for timber traders in the region. And this has been work, like I said, been going for about 3 years, and we are participating in some COP platforms at the beginning of November, but I'll come on to that. The idea is that we've been working with tropical timber trade associations throughout Africa and Asia, Indonesia and Central America, Honduras and Guyana, to help build capacity and capability amongst their timber trade associations, to implement the governance that they've got and to advocate for more support where they need it as well. Our work's been really well received, and the organisations that we work with are very grateful for our support. This also includes work with organisations in China and Vietnam as well. So we are truly around the globe here, pushing for more responsible trading conditions. I've completely forgotten to move my slides forward. There we go. So that's that. I'm sure Zhao will share some slides later under FLEGT. And being at COP in the next couple of weeks, we have 2 platforms that we'll be talking about there. The main one is a tropical timber accord that we've been working on with 15 tropical timber producing nations as a development on from FLEGT, the idea that these nations actually want more governance, more support, and to have that recognised. So the principle of helping stop deforestation under a climate change focus and a policy lens would be to reward reform. And we've got an entire programme based on that. And the second principle that we have is growing our low carbon future Time for Timber manifesto, where we are advocating for the mandated increase in timber products, because we want to increase use of timber products to help avert climate change. And the question and answer here is how can construction help keep 1.5 alive? Use more timber. I think we can all agree that's going to be a good plan. This is all underpinned by the World of Wood Festival from the 25th of October to the 3rd of December at the Building Centre in London, and it's also going to be online and virtually. The website's going to go live towards the end of this week. That's worldofwoodfestival.org. And we've got 3 themes: averting climate change, decarbonising construction, and governance for growth, and focused on 6 topics: why wood, time for timber, the WOW Timber Beacon, a World of Wood tour of inspirational buildings across the world, why governance is essential, and global forests need global governance. And there's greater detail on all of those within the website and the outputs that we'll be doing. We are supporting this all with an online and in-person series of seminars for international knowledge sharing, and an AR app just for fun to help get these messages across in a unique way and make them stick. The idea of having interactive content on your mobile phone through the World of Wood app and being able to explore some of these buildings and these concepts. So this is all coming in the next couple of weeks. And that's a quick look at the website. We're also supporting the Wood Awards as the greatest kind of manifestation of the use of global sustainable wood by the best of British architects and designers. The Wood Awards will host their shortlist exhibition at the Building Centre for the 6 weeks of the festival. And we're going to hold the ceremony later in November, also at the Building Centre as well. It's going to be very exciting. This is the entire point. Global forests and wood products are crucial to averting climate change. Whilst the world is focused on climate change, let's remind everybody the importance of timber and forests have. And wood equals hope. And I'm going to leave it there. Thank you ever so much. I'll stop sharing.
Thank you very much, Lucy. And that completes our sharing for this afternoon. Back to Charlie. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jiao, Camilla and Lucy, for those sort of presentations there. Really, really interesting there. So obviously 3 main topics there that we've looked at. Well, I know we've had a few questions starting to come in, so I'll pick up on those in a second. But just to summarise some of that stuff, so obviously we've got the new responsible purchasing policy, so the RPP, which Jiao's outlined there. We'll have a little bit of a chat about that. Maybe any questions on your thoughts on implementing those items there. So the 5 main points there are very much around responsible specification clauses, CCPI, EPDs, modern slavery, and carbon reporting. So that, what's your thoughts on there? Is that something you'll be able to implement fairly soon, or is it something you need time to put into place? We obviously talked about CCPI, the Code for Construction Product Information that Camilla's outlined there. What, again, be good to have a chat about your thoughts on that. Is that something you can see implemented in your business? Obviously, it's very much voluntary at the moment, but that's something we would like all our members to sign up to. Whether there's going to be various levels of engagement with that, that's another possibility. Do you need the full certificate or for certain products, and how many products would you be looking to put through that scheme? So maybe some questions on that, and then anything on the FLEGT program that Lucy's been through there. Obviously, quite a lot of work going on there around FLEGT. working with other nations and everything else? Is there stuff that we need to be doing more of there? So, so really open up the floor. We've had one question come in so far. Looking at the Q&A here. So first question, I think, is, so how does the RPP link with the pressure treated wood industry? So that's one for probably myself and Zhao. So pressure treated wood, I think that ties in very much with the obviously responsible sourcing on one side, Zhao, but also code for construction product and information as well, Camilla, I think, because obviously around performance and whether you're looking at what use class you're going to be pushing that timber out onto the market as. Does it meet those performance requirements? I think it's very much the case there. So anything to add on that, Zhao or Camilla?
Yeah, I think it was similar, like the Camilla mentioned this other example, green treated, isn't it? That is something we definitely try to remove. But there are other incorrect claims that we've seen already. Camilla, maybe you could talk a bit more. What are the wrong things that they shouldn't declare, but they have been already?
Thank you. Yes, most of our focus this year has been on the preservative treatment campaign that we're running with the Wood Protection Association and also the Timber Decking and Cladding Association, so that we make sure that our members who have all had a copy of the revised Code of Conduct since the beginning of this year now know that they should not be using words like green treated. They should be using the appropriate use class. So use class 4 if it's in ground contact, use class 3U if it's something like timber cladding, which is used outside but above ground, or use class 2 if that is used internally only. So yes, we are very much working totally in step with the wood protection industry on those issues. We've taken our message out through a campaign of digital advertising to the builders merchant sector. We did that in April and May this year at the height of the season. And we've got work ongoing sort of into the future to keep pushing that message out. We've also produced a leaflet called Getting the Treatment Right, and that has been circulated to all the builders merchant members of the NMBS, which is about 1,800 members representing quite a few branches, and then also via our website, and we've had it included as an insert into a magazine. So we're very strongly pushing the accurate product information agenda through that to start off with. Obviously, the advent of CCPI means that we've all got to have a good look at our systems, and in particular in our sector within TDUK and our trading members, we're actually doing a lot of work right at the moment on competence and proving that our people are competent to do the job and which qualifications represent competence and how we take that forward through the industry. So that's work that I'm actively engaged in. And I've also been helping to design the Code for the Construction Products Competence Framework, so that again our industry can work with that. So I'm now defining that for the timber sector. Other people are defining it for their own sectors as well. So yes, we're fully engaged with all these agendas. Hope that answers your question.
Thanks, Camilla. That's brilliant. That I think that definitely hopefully answers the question there. If you want to come back in on that one, obviously let us know, but hopefully that answers your question. Just on the next one, which I think Camilla's partly answered, this one is, are we able to use GIB or Grown in Britain and Time for Timber within our current marketing, or are they registered trademarks? Well, absolutely, Camilla's put there. Grown in Britain is actually a certification scheme. So to be able to use the Grown in Britain mark, you need to obviously register as a Grown in Britain to supplier, whether that's a chain of custody supplier. If you're supplying timber, you would be able to use it if you register for that trademark there. As far as Time for Timber, I'm not, I don't think that is a trademark, that one, Camilla. As far as I'm aware, that's just a general term that we're using around the timber industry at the moment, isn't it? So I think that's something that they would be able to use.
I think that's Time for Timber is definitely a concept, and we're not looking to trademark it at all. It just is.
Absolutely. Thanks, Lucy. That's brilliant. I think this is one for you, this one, Lucy, here. Question coming from Miles here. What countries have TDUK partnered with for the Tropical Timber Accord, and what is this expected to contain?
I won't take this as my opportunity to read you the entire accord, but thanks, Miles, I appreciate that. It's a refreshed and updated and internationalized version of FLEGT is what we're advocating for. The 15 nations that are undergoing the transformative process, that is the VPA process, and have spent a lot of hard-won and hard-earned time and effort and seen a lot of really positive change. They are not prepared to let that go if the EU decides that FLEGT isn't worth its time for hassle anymore. So we've been advocating on their behalf and working with those nations individually. And yes, that is the 15 VPA nations, of which I'm imagining that your particular attention may be Ghana. So working with FIAG specifically on that one as well. I hope that helps. And we will circulate as soon. I've got some changes, typos to amend, and then we'll be able to circulate the accord. So we'll make sure you get a copy of that.
Thanks, Lucy. Brilliant stuff. So I think that's so all the questions we've got so far. But if you've got any other questions, please obviously post them in the chat or the quick Q&A boxes, and we'll attempt to answer those. I think just to really go back maybe on Zhao's presentation a little bit there, just you mentioned that we might look at phasing some of those items in. And I think it's worth sort of maybe we expand on some of those points really. Obviously, we've already got the responsible purchasing policy requirements in place for responsible purchasing and certain, in effect, CCPI requirements around plywood. And I think what will happen going forward is that we'll sort of phase certain points in at certain times is the way it will work. I think one of the first ones that we'll be pushing for is for specifiers, whether that be contractors and architects or maybe merchants that specify timber from importers, that they start to require them to put some sort of responsible purchasing policy in place if they haven't already got it. I'd be surprised if a lot of those companies aren't already doing that, but if they aren't, we need to make sure that they are specifying responsible timber in their specifications. So that's probably going to be one of the first ones, because it's quite an easy one to do. It's some words and it shouldn't be too difficult to pick up on that. I think as far as CCPI, I don't think from the start we'll be looking for people to become necessarily certified and under the CCPI committee, from what our thoughts are. I don't know if that's what your thoughts are. It's really looking at the spirit of the guide and the code of product information, and looking at maybe certain higher risk products. We mentioned treated timber, we've talked about plywood in the past, and it might be that we set requirements for those products maybe to be certified at some point.
Perhaps also things like, I'm sorry, Charlie, after you.
Go on, Camilla.
No, I was also thinking about fire treatments and FR rated products and so on, which all need to be claims need to be backed up. Basically, any claim that we're making now needs to be backed up, and obviously everyone can understand that from the post-Grenfell point of view. The shenanigans with product information that went on around there, we can all see why. We now everyone needs to be able to back up everything that they say about products with some factual information, a test result, a DOP, something to back up the claims, and also their guarantees and warranties. And there is further information on that. CCPI being a licensing system, it is voluntary at the moment. Companies have to apply to get a license, but obviously we don't know what the cost of that is yet. No. Those costs won't be published until early to mid-December this year, as far as we know it at the moment, but things have with CCPI become a little bit delayed on occasion, so sometimes it's a month or so after we're expecting something to happen, because obviously it's a very big move for the industry. Also, it's a little like FSC and other things, in that your customers may at some point demand it, so therefore you may have to get a license in that respect, in the same way as most of us have looked at our own, shall we say, societal license to operate and opted for PEFC or FSC or Grow in Britain or one of those appropriate certification schemes. So if you think of it along those lines and start planning for it now, obviously the costs will become clearer. and the system will become clearer come the end of the year. So yeah, that's all I can add on that one, Charlie.
Thanks for that, Camilla. Yeah, I think we're still waiting for things to sort of fall into place on that scheme to know exactly what the requirements will be under the responsible person. So that's great. We have got a hand up here with Paul. I think I'm just seeing if I can unmute you there, Paul. Please. You might have to type a question there, Paul, because I'm not sure if we can actually unmute you on this. So if you want to type a question, that'd be easier.
There's a question in the Q&A box from Paul.
Okay, let's just get that open then. Do we think CCPI, FSC and PFC, etc. will combine into one certification claiming scheme? I don't think so, no. CCPI is going to be totally separate because it's very much around product performance rather than responsible sourcing. So I think CCPI will stand alone. I think at the moment, I think it's very unlikely that we'll see PFC and FSC coming together anytime soon as well. I think they very much want to see their schemes is independent of each other at the moment. Zhao, have you got any questions, any sort of comments on that? What are your thoughts on that?
No, I think covered it already. I think to have FAC and PFAC agreeing with each other is already going to be a challenge that I'm not sure if it is ever going to happen. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, I think that there might be things that we may look at in the future, see if we can do something, but that's a future topic at the moment. I think we don't want to go too far into that at this time.
If I could also pick up on that.
Go on, Camilla. Yeah,
that's all right.
Please.
Hi, Paul. Nice to hear from you. If you want any particular help over CCPI and how it might affect your business, please do get in contact with me afterwards, and I'd be happy to have a session with you and your corporate responsibility manager that you have now. So very happy to do that. And for any other members who have queries about CCPI, please do let me know. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Camilla. That's invaluable resource there that we've got. So if any questions, obviously go to Camilla. She'll be able to help you as best she can on that. Any other questions that we may have? I think while we're waiting for any other questions to come through, really just to look at some of the other stuff that we might want to look at. So EPDs, obviously we're starting to see a lot more EPDs come through now from certain manufacturers. I think with that, this is very much a request from our specifier members in that they're very much need this information now to be able to develop their whole life carbon assessments for buildings. So that's one of the reasons why that's going in there. We are working at the moment with Wood for Good to see if we can update the existing Wood for Good. I call them EPDs. They're not really EPDs. They're life cycle assessments, but sort of update those to the new standards, to the new A2 plus A2 standards. So we'll see how we get. That should be as a project for next year that we're hoping to get done by the end of next year. It's quite a bit of time to do those at the moment. They take a long time. But obviously, where you are an individual product manufacturer, we do need to see actual product EPDs for your, especially your high volume products. I think that to start coming through. Otherwise, I think there may come a time where specifiers won't specify products unless they can see an EPD and the impacts that product has. So that's just something we need to bear in mind with product manufacturers. So on the modern slavery, again, that's around the modern slavery statement. So it really applies to large organisations at the moment, but I think that's something we want to really see all of our members get on board with, purely because of the supply chains involved with timber are quite long, and we want to make sure that we're asking the right questions there. And just on the last one there that we talked about was the carbon scope 1 and 2. For those who are not familiar with carbon scope 1 and 2 is the fuel that you use within your own business, so anything that you burn.
Apologies, Charlie, your microphone's fading a bit there.
Sorry. And then so that's the fuel that you use, and anything you burn in your own facility. So that might include diesel in your cars that you supply, and any sort of fuel that you might burn in combined heat and power units or something like that. and the electricity you're using yourself as well. So that's your scope 1 and 2 emissions are the key ones that we're going to be asking for people to report. And then we'll be adding to that is around the real material scope 3 emissions would be around sort of what we call things like business travel, maybe some commuting, and in particular any outsourced transport for your downstream deliveries. That's the sort of thing that we're going to be looking to deliver to include in that reporting. And that's very much around a net zero carbon strategy that the TDUK is pulling together at the moment. We've got that in draft form. We're working on that with our carbon subgroup to try and come up with a strategy that gives you a load of information about how your particular businesses might be able to reduce your carbon emissions. And that very much ties in with the COP26 and stuff we're doing around that Lucy was talking about. I think we have got another question. I know that's just Paul saying thank you. If there are any other questions, I haven't seen any other questions come in. So I think unless you've got any last minute questions, anyone, please type them now. I think we'll just sort of finish up and say thank you very much to our speakers. Thanks to Zal, thanks to Camilla, thanks to Lucy for your presentations today and the information you're giving. Really useful information, and really starts to tie together a lot of the work that TDUK is doing, and obviously previously what was TTF and now TDUK. So that's really good. So thanks for that. Just want to bring you up to speed on the things that were coming up as well. We've got our World of Wood program, which starts next week. Will be that Lucy mentioned there. That's very much going to be seeing some information coming out to our members later on this week. So it should be an event on the 26th of October in the afternoon. That's also the same day as our last sustainability series webinar, and we're going to be doing a presentation from the architect and engineers that were involved in the design of the timber beacon, which unfortunately is not going ahead as part of COP26 now. We're hoping to maybe use that at a future event, but talk about how they designed that to be demountable, deconstructable, reusable. Very much ties in with the circular economy themes that we're looking at with our circular economy subcommittee. So it might give you some ideas there on how you can design for deconstruction and reuse. So we'd very much like you to join those. Unless there's any other questions, last minute questions, which I haven't seen. I think that'll be it, and we'll just making code there. Yeah, Camilla's just put a link in there to CCPI Code.org.uk for the full CCPI. But thank you very much for attending today. Really appreciate your time today. Jack will be sending out some post presentation information and a survey. I take it, Jack. I think. Yep. So he'll be sending that survey. If you can please complete that, just let us know. Give us your feedback on the day. That would be really appreciated. If it was useful or not, I hope it is. And thank you very much for all your time. And we'll catch up with you hopefully next week at our last sustainability series webinar. Thanks very much, and thanks very much to all our presenters again. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Charlie.